Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Karuski. Okay, first, here we go. Thank you. The College Senate Committee on Research, the College Foundation and Alumni Association, the Grants Development Office, and Laura Lincoln. I am truly honored to be here. And before I say anything else, I want to congratulate each and every student and faculty member who has had a hand in all the amazing presentations on display for this year's Student Research and Creativity Day. It's an incredible achievement, and you should all be very proud of yourselves. Congratulations. I'm going to refer to my notes because, believe it or not, I'm more nervous than I've ever been in giving these talks. And I have to admit, when I was first asked to be this year's keynote speaker, I thought someone made a terrible mistake. I mean, after all, what can I, as a theatrical producer, say on this auspicious day to a group that includes so many students of the sciences and math? And then it occurred to me that the science and theater are close cousins because we both came from that same place and time. Let's see if this works. There we go. Athens during the 5th century BC in the reign of King Pericles in the height of Athenian civilization. It turns out that what science, math, and theater all have in common is an intense focus on what the human mind can reason and express that was born in that place and time. Today, you are all displaying the fruits of concepts like hypothesis, analysis, and geometry that come from the same place that gave us my tools of tragedy, comedy, and orchestra. In addition to the wonderful gifts of knowledge and skill that you have received from Oneonta and put on display with such talent today, there is another gift from our alma mater whose value you may not fully realize, and that's the special experience of human connection and communication that happens on a campus. That unique experience teaches us to give human meaning to our creativity, and it also happens in theater. One of the reasons I love theater is because nothing replaces the deep connection of live human interaction. It happens live and in front of you every night in the theater. A group of people sit together in the dark and experience the same emotions together: laughter, anger, tension, sorrow, whatever it may be. The actors on stage feel that, and their performances change accordingly. That doesn't happen in film or television or with video games. Even such wondrous devices as smartphones and tablets, which were mere science fiction when I was a student, can only be used meaningfully by people who understand true human connection in the presence of others. Both theaters and campuses are places where people contend with ideas and feelings. In speaking here today, I would like to share with you how my personal experiences at Oneonta helped me get from here to here. I first arrived in Oneonta in 1975, and although it was only 40 years ago, the world was a very different place. I swore I would never be one of those old fogies who said to younger people, "When I was your age," and I promise I'm going to keep it to a minimum, but it is germane to my story today. For unlike many people today, extensive travel was a far reach for a middle-class family like mine. We would venture into New York City from Eastern Long Island a few times a year where we'd see an occasional Broadway show or a ballet. I fell in love with theater and the magic it provided very early on. But I also knew I had no real artistic talent. I couldn't act or dance, and trust me, you don't want to hear me sing. But what I did know was there were a lot of different parts to a show. Actors, costumes, scenery, and if it were a musical, there were musicians in the pit. Early on, I realized that in every theater program, there was a name above the title that said somebody presented this show. These are actual programs of shows I saw when I was a kid. And I really didn't know what that person was called a producer or what they did exactly, but I guess they must be the person who put all the pieces together, and that's what I wanted to do. I chose Oneonta because, having never traveled further than New York City, this place seemed manageable to a kid being away from home for the first time. The campus was smaller and less frightening than other schools I visited, including SUNY Binghamton, right up the road, and SUNY Albany. It's amazing to me how that decision to attend Oneonta has shaped everything else in my life that was yet to come. I landed at Toby Hall, and upon entering my room, my roommate had installed this message on our window. Even then I had top billing, which made me feel right at home. I quickly had to learn to budget my time, hours of study, and especially meal tickets. Back in ancient times, when I attended Oneonta, every month you were given a booklet of tickets to pay for your meals. When you bought food at a dining hall or coffee shop, they removed that amount from your booklet. Cash wasn't accepted, and we hadn't yet heard of this thing called credit cards. So at the beginning of every month, you would get a new booklet worth, I don't know, say around 50 bucks. The first few months, upon receiving a booklet, I would walk into a dining hall feeling like a rich man and order a steak for 10 bucks. No problem, right? Except, by the end of the month, I was trying to figure out how to eat for $1.50 a day. It was a great lesson in budgeting from Oneonta that still, honestly, comes in handy today. I actually often fantasize about giving a set designer or a director I hire for a new show a booklet of tickets. And as they spend it on sets or costumes, like just ripping the tickets out until they have nothing left and then say, oops. I've actually thought about that, but I digress. When I graduated Oneonta in 1979, I took a job at Newsday, which is the Long Island newspaper, but I was miserable. And after 2 years, I found my way to Columbia University and its MFA program in theater administration. A series of internships and part-time jobs led me to work for an off-Broadway theatrical company upon graduation from Columbia, and I slowly began producing shows off-Broadway, then as an associate producer on Broadway. Oh, and we skipped a slide, so we'll go right there. And then finally, being a lead producer and realizing my dream of being a producer and being that guy whose name was above the title. When I think about the greatest influences that came from Oneonta, far beyond meal tickets, is the growth I achieved right here on this campus in interpersonal skills and communication. Being in this room today full of creative minds, all stimulating and inspiring one another, reminds me of the singular gift the 4 years at Oneonta was for me. It reminds me of the value of asking not only what I can create, but for whom, for what purpose, and how to communicate it. As I move through life, I am continually reminded of the importance of not only having an idea, but effectively conveying it to others. This is an imperative component of the creative process, having one's idea, expressing it, and then refining it based on the feedback about how well it was understood. In my industry, this is called the preview period or out-of-town tryout. One of my most memorable examples of this process is when a new show I was working on called Moving Out was trying out in Chicago. Moving Out was a new musical by the brilliant choreographer Twyla Tharp with the songs and music of Billy Joel. I thought it was an incredible piece of theater with extraordinary dancing and a touching story about the emotional cost of war. However, at performance after performance, the audiences were not responding well. In fact, they were sometimes downright hostile. I remember that one critic recounted he went across the street at intermission to get a drink and said, I hear it gets better in the second act, to which the bartender said, not much. Trust me, that is what is known as a show in trouble. My co-producers and I quickly figured out by listening and observing that audiences were confused as to who was telling the story and why. In dance, there's not spoken dialogue to help make that clear, so it had to be told through movement and music. I had to gently, and sometimes not so gently, convince Twyla that the story she thought was being told so well was actually unclear and confusing to people. She had to come up with a way of choreographically conveying this information. The Fix was a prologue to Billy's song, Still Rock and Roll to Me, that introduced each character to the audience. Once the audiences were shown at the top of the show who to watch, and their relationship to each other, our story miraculously clicked into place. We moved to New York, received rave reviews, and won the Tony for Best Choreography. It ran on Broadway for over 3 years and toured the nation, including Chicago, where now audiences loved it. A true example of listening, learning, and communicating that began right here at Oneonta. When I look back at the shows I have produced, I am struck by the themes of connection and friendship that run through them. Among them is Legally Blonde, a story about a young woman who discovers her intelligence when she stops seeing herself through her boyfriend's eyes, and Kinky Boots, a story about the surprising bond of the unexpected friendship between two people from different worlds who joined to save a shoe factory in Northampton, England. Each of these shows went through the process of development, readings, previews, and finally an opening night which involved audiences weighing in with their opinion about whether or not we succeeded in our storytelling efforts. You may not realize it, but each of you is mounting your own kind of stage reading here today, learning how to connect with others to share your talents and ideas meaningfully. I cherish not only the experiences that I had in college, but the people with whom I had them. The connections I made here at Oneonta include 3 of the most influential and enduring friendships in my life. And I am lucky enough and thrilled that they are here with us today. And they are Amy Deutsch, Jane Rosenbaum, and Michael Uzzi, all alumni of SUNY Oneonta. I met each of them here, and we've been each other's best friends for over 40 years. We have seen each other through marriage, divorce, deaths, and births, and have remained each other's solid rocks in the stormy seas that come with life. Each of us has pursued a different career path, but has had to learn to communicate effectively daily. Jane does so as the head of the human resources of a company with offices throughout the United States. Amy as chief financial officer of a major New York City construction company, and Michael as a sought-after independent architect. When I was invited to speak here today, I jumped at the chance to bring them with me as living proof of the value of personal connection that I learned right here at Oneonta. What does this have to do with math and science? Well, as I said a few minutes ago, the arts and sciences are cousins. And as the future scientists, researchers, doctors, analysts, and even just as participants in today's Student Research and Creativity Day, nothing will be more powerful as you move through life than the art of expressing your ideas and listening to that of others. Take the time to always talk and listen to one another as you are doing here today. Having a great idea is only half the equation. Knowing how to express it is equally as important. That has been the most important lesson of my college years on my 40-year path to Broadway. Whatever path each of you may take, I hope you will continue to value that lesson as you are learning it here today. So in conclusion, when people ask how I got from here to here, or metaphorically, from here, okay, right, to here, I say it is because I learned the essence of communication and learning ideas and communicating them right here at Oneonta. I congratulate you all on your achievements here today, and I wish you all much success wherever life may take you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for listening. I'd now like to take the lights up and answer any questions if anyone has. Thank you.